In most places around the world, electric cars, while a growing part of the new car marketplace, still represent a tiny proportion of overall car sales. They're still very much seen as niche market vehicles. At worst, playthings of the rich, or maybe just impractical for everyday driving. And while we're among friends on this channel, most of the people who watch are eager to see plug-in cars thrive, you only have to look at the comments section from this channel to see that even here, people are eager to put down plug-in cars as not practical or affordable for everyday life. You'll note that I said most places at the start because in Norway, where electric cars have long been considered a viable alternative to internal combustion engine vehicles, sales of electric cars during the first 6 months of this year accounted for, wait for it, almost 1/2 of all new cars sold. From January through to June this year, 48.8% of all new cars in Norway were electric, up from 31.2% for the entirety of 2018. While Norway is still a nation that produces a large amount of oil, it has the best per capita electric vehicle adoption rate of any nation in the world. As a consequence, we often see and hear people try and compare Norway's successes to the rest of the world, asking what other countries can do to mimic Norway's roadmap to electrification. And we've covered that before. Norway's successes can be traced back to incredible incentives, but what we haven't covered is why Norway's successes might be hard to copy elsewhere. At the top of Norway's incentive list is the lack of sales tax for electric vehicles, and a massive tax on the sale of internal combustion engine cars. Then there's the free parking and charging in some cities, it does depend where you are, and the ability in some areas to drive in the bus lane if you're in an electric vehicle. These all make electric vehicle adoption really enticing for new car buyers. Mile by mile, or rather kilometre by kilometre, the amortisation of purchase price and fuelling over the lifetime of an electric car is far, far better than it now is for an internal combustion engine car in Norway. Add in the fact that Norway's electricity grid is predominantly fed with zero-emission hydroelectricity, and Norway's electrical grid has plenty of excess capacity, and it's easy for the country to ensure a truly low-carbon transition to electric vehicles. I should also note too that, contrary to the claims of distractors, Norway's incentives aren't just enabling the rich to buy electric cars. Because of the sales tax exemption, more affordable electric cars, things like your Nissan Leafs and Volkswagen e-Golfs and Renault Zoes, are within the reach of many more customers in Norway than they would be elsewhere in Europe. Granted, Norway's second-hand electric car market sucks, but that's a different issue. In other countries around the world, a sales tax change to make it economically more affordable to own an electric car than an internal combustion engine one is certainly feasible, and some countries are doing just that. Upcoming bans on internal combustion engine vehicles are also helping push more people towards electric vehicles, but not at the kind of speed that we're seeing in Norway. So why is that? Well, there are a couple of things that we really don't talk about when it comes to Norway that you should be talking about, and we need to take it into consideration. First, there's the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Norway's Sovereign Wealth Fund, about $1 trillion worth, means that Norway is one of the few countries in the world that doesn't have massive debt. Sure, it does have some debts, but that sovereign wealth fund, much of it acquired from the sale of massive oil deposits under Norway, means that Norway's assets are larger than its debts, or in other words, it is currently in a net positive situation. That means it's far easier for Norway to invest in incentive programs for electric vehicles than it might be for other countries with massive debts. And as a side though, I should note that some are worried about the drop in payments into Norway's sovereign wealth fund due to the drop in purchase taxes from the sale of non-electric vehicles. So even Norway and its $1 trillion fund has to be careful. In addition to Norway's excellent financial position, its population distribution also really helps. Norway might have a pretty large amount of land and an equally large amount of coastline, but the majority of its population live in a reasonably small area, which certainly helps with the adoption of short-range electric vehicles. Norway's also home to plenty of public-private partnerships for charging networks too, and over the past decade or more, we've seen robust charging networks established across the nation. Now, even remote areas of Norway are well served by charging infrastructure, and there are really very few places you can't travel in Norway by electric car. And here, I think, is a chicken and egg scenario. As more people switch to electric, it's easier for private companies to make the business case for installing infrastructure because the return on investment is going to be a lot sooner. If nobody's going to be using it, or electric vehicle incentives don't exist to make it easy for people to buy EVs, no one's going to want to install the charging infrastructure. And in turn, if there's no charging infrastructure, nobody wants to drive electric. Yet again, it's thanks to those big tax breaks for EV ownership. Then there's Norway's population. It isn't all that big when compared to other nations. And that means that even though there are now waiting lists to buy many modern electric cars, it's not super hard for automakers to keep Norway supplied with vehicles because they don't have to produce them in the orders of magnitude that they would for other nations. For example, for the same kind of sales switch to happen in, say, the US, we'd be talking about electric vehicle production into the hundreds of thousands per year, or maybe even millions. Finally, though, I'd point Norway's successes partly to its democratic index and how the country is operated as a whole. While it has its flaws, like any nation, it's classed first in the World Democracy Index, ahead of Iceland, Sweden, New Zealand, Denmark, Ireland, and Canada. The UK is 14th and the US is 25th, in case you were wondering. The index measures how well the government functions, how fair and free its elections are, and how developed and invested its people are in politics. Could other nations copy Norway? Absolutely. But to do so would require a large cash injection, a massive improvement in electric vehicle infrastructure, and a governmental support that's currently missing in many of the world's largest and most influential nations. Do you think your country will be able to follow Norway's lead? Or do you think that another solution has to happen? Let me know below. That's it. Thanks for watching. Let us know if you liked it or didn't like it below. Scribble a comment, hit the notification bell, and if you'd like to help us make more of these shows, please do consider sending $1 or $2 our way every month through Patreon, buy us a coffee with Ko-fi, or visit our merch store. I'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, keep evolving.